Thanks. It's great to be with you this evening. Greg phoned me a couple of weeks ago and asked me to do this. I was sitting on a beach in Hawaii, and he said there were two constraints. One wasn't allowed to use PowerPoint, and I had to talk for 15 minutes, which is a really, really hard thing for me to do. But I did find an app that I could put my speaker notes on my iPad, so that's good. And if it doesn't work, there's always Angry Birds straight afterwards, so we'd easily keep going. I took the opportunity to reflect a little bit about the programs like Spark here in New Zealand and entrepreneurship, and wanted to share a few thoughts with you about being an entrepreneur. And I've spent about half my life as an entrepreneur, and half of my life, the outcome of being an entrepreneur is often selling your ventures to very large companies. And a lot of my learning really goes way back to my days here at Auckland University, where actually attracted by all kinds of motives, I ended up not doing business or commerce, and there was no business school here. I actually don't remember what was here, but it wasn't this. And I did a liberal arts degree, and it turns out Peter Drucker was the first to spot it. That's about the best management training money can buy. The other big source of inspiration for me is actually the time you get to spend with entrepreneurs, and that's why I think programs like this are so enormously valuable, because it's hard to find entrepreneurs to spend time with and learn from. Most importantly, many of you who are starting out on this journey, you won't realize it now, but they are the greatest source of friendships that you'll get to build. It's not the people you work with that you remember, it's the people you create things with. I also have a huge admiration for entrepreneurs because they build neat things, and every single day I sit there and I play with Evernote, I play with Dropbox, I was playing with my new Samsung Galaxy, play with Angry Birds. I sit there and I couldn't bear a 9-hour flight to Hawaii without an iPad loaded with apps for kids. And somewhere at some point, an entrepreneur woke up and said, hey, I've got this idea. What if we just did? And you fill in the blank. I've also been lucky enough to work with some of the great entrepreneurs out there. Michael Dell, Bill Gates, Mark Benioff, here with people like Greg and Helen Cross, Rod Jury, Sam Morgan, Jenny Morrell, Ralph Norris, who I think often gets overlooked, but probably is the Jack Welch of the Southern Hemisphere, people like Stephen Tyndall, Dennis Chapman, so many more. And you'll learn that there are really two kinds of entrepreneurs out there. There are entrepreneurs like me who entrepreneur away, and sometimes we do that in big enterprises. And there's a whole other class of entrepreneur, that's the founder entrepreneur, the Michael Dell of the world, the Stephen Tyndall of the world. These are rare beasts, and when you get to learn from them, you learn special things. But some of the things that you learn from them are unique, and I want to talk about them for a second because not everyone gets to learn them, and that experience that you have is pretty rare. Probably the first thing is don't confuse innovation with entrepreneurship. Idea Bank, something we launched recently at CBA, we don't expect the innovation always to come internally, but it can come from our customers at the edge. And if you look at some of our most innovative companies to come out, some of our biggest success stories in this country, it's not been about innovation, it's about executing the fundamentals really, really well. These entrepreneurs, these founder entrepreneurs in particular, have a lot of really common characteristics. They ask a lot of questions. They're some of the best listeners around. They're hugely dissatisfied. And when you pick that up as a trait, and you go to work in a big company, it drives people absolutely nuts. But they never stop. And so how do you keep learning things like this? How do you keep conveying things like this? Well, you do it through programs like these. And it begs the question, can you even teach entrepreneurship? You can learn it everywhere. You can learn it in big companies. I've spent a year now in the banking sector, and the sales and service discipline that I've experienced at CBA is second to none. I'd suggest every tech company could be a far degree more profitable if they just spent a week at CBA learning how we serve customers and the kind of metrics and approaches and disciplines we have. Very, very akin to what Zappos has implemented in the US. At university, the financial discipline and the experiences, that safe environment you get is unprecedented. But you ask yourself then, if there's so much richness around these learning opportunities, why do entrepreneurs largely fail, me included? More than often, small businesses and entrepreneurs fail because of fundamentals, really simple things. They run out of money. They fail to sell enough product, or they fail to collect the cash for the product they sold. The bottom line is there's no shortcuts. And it's amazing to me how many not particularly original products, as I said, actually succeed because someone took the time to get the fundamentals right. You look at TradeMe, arguably New Zealand's greatest tech success story. Not a particularly original idea, but executed brilliantly. Look at 42 Below Vodka. There's been a lot of flavoured vodka out there for a very long time. Enormous success story. Doesn't make their founders any more or less innovative or entrepreneurs, but it does make them some of our best entrepreneurs. Well, big businesses fail for some of the same reasons, and I've been around big companies and watched them fail from the inside and from the outside in. And if you had said to me in 2004, when I was living in San Francisco, you know, within 5 years there'll be no record stores left in this town, I would have said you've had too much to drink, because there are a lot of record stores in this town. 5 years later, not a record store left. If you had said to me, hey Andy, you know, within 5 years there'll be no bookstores left in this town, I'd have said you're nuts. San Francisco was home to some of the finest bookstores in the world. And yet you'd struggle to find one. In fact, there isn't one. I went looking on my last trip. There's none left. And so these big companies fail largely from breathing too much of their own exhaust, and they get real complacent. We largely fail, though, because we don't like to talk about failure much. We host a very unique conference at CBA called Women in Focus, where we invite women only, women entrepreneurs only, to come and talk and share ideas and share learnings. And I've never been to a conference more different than the typically male-dominated conferences that I attend. And these women stood up, and they're quite happy to talk about their failures and share what went wrong. And so this is where educational institutions, again, play a vital role, because they actually give us a chance to share failures in a very current context. I don't believe the media necessarily can perform this role, because they also have a role to write great headlines, and if it bleeds, it leads. But worse still, they surround us with a lot of false positives. We look at the likes of a Facebook. It's pretty unique, it's pretty absolute. Great story, but not a great role model. Great founders, but not so many experiences. And yet you go spend an hour with Dennis Chapman, you're likely to learn just as much as you would by spending an hour with Mark Zuckerberg. So the more opportunities you have to fail, the more you have to succeed. And we need more failures if we're going to move from a nation of bits to a nation of bytes. We need to pick up our failure rate. And the good news is we've got a few things that are going to help us fail more. Our investment ecosystem remains particularly fragile. A lot of people doing a lot of hard work to make it stronger, but that's really going to help some of you fail. There just won't be enough money to go around. We don't have enough hubs, concentrated hubs, much like the Israelis have built. We've built some terrific hubs in wireless and in software as a service. Actually, some very interesting emerging hubs in gaming and entertainment technology, but boy, we need more. I think if you look at the University of Auckland, some of the work that's gone on here around wireless power and the efforts that Greg and his team are leading at Power by Proxy, it's a great example of what happens when you concentrate technology in entrepreneurship. Simply put, a strategy of 1,000 flowers blooming, I don't believe will work over the long run and is particularly suboptimal. So another point I'd make to you is that to increase the failure rate, we need to stop focusing on fixing things. Somewhat ironically, Number 8 Ventures got called Number 8 Ventures after the old Number 8 Wire thing. Great entrepreneurs, I've noticed in working with some of the biggest in the world, they don't spend a lot of time fixing stuff. The basic mantra is every hour I spend fixing something is an hour I don't spend creating something. And they tend to move forward. They don't get hung up on can't, they focus on can. So if those are some of the ground rules of things that will help you fail, what are some of the opportunities that we can go fail or faster around? First is participation. We live in the social era. This is the next big shift. This, to our kids, is what the internet was to us. It surrounds us every day. Facebook is the new platform for growth and infinite scale. It's also the platform for transparency. You can't hide from the customers anymore. That means the bar's never ever going to be higher for every single one of you that want to be an entrepreneur. There's nowhere to hide. At the same time, those same channels, those same networks you build give you a vehicle for delivering world-class service and support. They also give you a vehicle for scaling with new economics. It's not exclusive to the entrepreneur. Recently at CBA, we ran a little test on Facebook where we said, hey, what if we just say to people, come along, like us on Facebook, check in at a branch, use the check-in feature on Facebook at a branch, open a transaction account, and I'll give you 2 free movie tickets for the rest of the year, every month for the rest of the year. And we thought, yeah, that'll take about 30 days to hit our target, and we'll only do it virally, and we'll see how this thing goes. And about 4 hours later, the young team came wandering back to the office and said, "Oh, we've got a problem." I was like, yeah, I was expecting problems. What's the first problem we've got? Well, we've sold out. Literally it had gone. And I sit there and I look, if a big company can do that with zero investment you imagine what a small entrepreneur can do with a great idea. This is the area of immediacy. Much like revolutions take seconds, results come in seconds. And this new world will place a huge premium on engagement. So go build your network and get that scale and economy in your business model early on. The next big opportunity is clearly mobile. The third screen will dominate. The PC era is behind us. The mobile will dominate, and that's quickly linking to the fourth screen, your television. What's interesting here is around 80% of all mobile users out there watch TV with their devices in hand, and 40% of them are using social networking. This is a really profound shift. The number one time people now do their banking is while watching television in the evening, right? And if you think about that, it places a premium on us when we build products and services, not just to be simple, but be simple enough to do while you're doing something else. That's a really profound shift in the market today. And indeed, the next generation of businesses will be inherently companion businesses. They'll be businesses that you do while doing something else. The next point I wanted to make, the third key factor, is production. Digital production is transforming everything. And the first wave of social entrepreneurship started with content and the content revolution. Applications like WordPress, Typepad, Blogger, Instagram commanded huge values because of the network power they were able to build around content. But there's an interesting second wave occurring now around production, which I think is an amazing source of opportunity for an entrepreneur anywhere on this earth. About 5 weeks ago, I was sitting with some friends of mine in Melbourne who own a really interesting social venture firm called Small Giants. And they're entrepreneurs who are focused purely upon building startups that fulfill a social purpose. And we were talking about one of their key properties, an amazing magazine they published called Dumbo Feather, and we said, we want to build an application. And I said, well, I'll give you the money. Well, I'll give you the money. It's a great magazine. I love it. It's got endless potential. I'll give you the money. And I said, but wouldn't it be cool if we tested the strength of our fan base and we just posted this to Kickstarter as a project? Well, 3 weeks later, we'd raised all the money we needed and more, oversubscribed. So suddenly that ability to raise capital, even for a small single idea, is now democratized, transparent, and available on the web. I was sitting with Chad, the founder of Etsy, a couple of weeks ago in Melbourne also, and was just stunned at the growth they're achieving. Billions of dollars of revenue being built off what is essentially, for those of you that remember it, the old markets of old sitting in downtown Auckland selling craft products. Just absolutely remarkable. The next key trend that I'd encourage every one of you, even if you're in a B2B space, you have to figure out how you embrace play. Everything we do is becoming gamified. Everything we're doing is focused on how we engage the customer. Gaming is now the single largest entertainment industry in the world. You take a step back for a second. This time last year, Harry Potter, I think the final one was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows or something. For you Harry Potter fans, you'll know what I'm talking about. Movie was launched, and its opening weekend it grossed about 95 million, which is a good opening weekend for a movie. That same weekend, Call of Duty Black Ops 3 launched into the market. Revenues of $375 million. Same weekend. Right now, the gaming industry is larger than the music and the movie industries combined. So in themselves, they represent enormous opportunity, which is why institutions like us go out with entrepreneurs, we generate ideas, and we build things like Coinland, a gaming community for kids to learn about digital money and the future of money, which now about 1.4 million Australian children play. And this is about building brands that people can engage in. It's not sufficient any longer to build brands that people simply buy. And this leads me to my final point for this evening, and that is purpose. And this is where most entrepreneurs lose the plot. See, it's not what you do, it's what you do for others. Purpose is your source of trading advantage. Now, when people told me that originally, I thought they were getting all a bit soft and fluffy and they'd read a few too many books on management theory. But here's some interesting little numbers for you. Purpose-driven companies outperform the market 15 to 1. They have 4 times the revenue growth, 12 times the stock appreciation, and 7 times the rate of job creation. Zappos was never started to sell more shoes. Whole Foods was never started to sell extremely high-priced organic products to humans. Right? Southwest Airlines was never started to sell quite a lousy customer experience on a plane at a really low price. Their employees fundamentally believe in the higher purpose of their businesses. And what I would argue for you is the great startups, the great entrepreneurs out there are able to relate that higher purpose to their employees and to their customers and create real meaning. And from that meaning, great companies get built. As I've come back down under, I've seen this in action at CBA, where culture is a major source of enduring advantage. And people ask us, they fly in from all around the world, big banks, to say, how did you build a little product called Ka-Ching? Ka-Ching was built pretty quick. It's simply put, for those of you that haven't experienced it, it's your bank on your mobile phone with a whole lot of other cool features. Bump to pay, so tap two phones together and exchange money. NFC enabled, so in the morning when I go to buy my coffee, my phone is used to tap and go, so I don't have to carry a wallet with me anymore. I can pay to Facebook, pay my friends inside Facebook without ever leaving Facebook. And these big banks go, we've been trying to do this for decades. How did you guys do it? And the simple answer is culture. Culture is a source of advantage. When people say, yeah, we can do that, or how can I help you get that done? And that becomes embedded in the DNA, very big companies get to act like very small companies. So figure out that culture and figure out that purpose. To harness these 5 Ps and the other elements of success that I've briefly spoken about, you need to do one other thing, and that is you need to balance the paradoxes. And the paradoxes of entrepreneurship are the #1 thing I get when entrepreneurs call me, and a lot call me. You know, that purpose thing, Andy, sounds really cool, but you know, my shareholders, they want me to make money faster. How do I balance the two? They say to me, look, I've got these sales guys I hired, and you know, they're not performing, and you're telling me to fire them, but you know, they were the first people through the front door, and we all kind of are like a family, and I really like them, and actually one of them is my brother-in-law. It's kind of tricky. They say to me, you know, I'm trying to sell a lot, so that service thing, not so interested in the service thing. I just want to sell a hell of a lot more. Or, you know, I get the whole thing about emerging markets, but I don't like going to India very much. Do you think I could go to Australia instead? And the reality is, none of these are trade-offs. One cannot occur at the expense of the other. And the truth is, whether you think you can or you can't, you're probably right. And the great entrepreneurs out there have an enormous propensity to just say can. I can start this business. I can make it profitable. I can find my first customer. Shortly after that, I know I can find my second. I can break even. I can get to a profit. I can eventually take a holiday. So in the spirit of that, I did want to leave you this evening with actually a TV ad, and I know that sounds a little ominous, but it's a TV ad I think that captures really nicely the spirit of can and the belief of all entrepreneurs that whether you think you can or you can't, you're definitely right. So why don't we run that? I'll leave you with it, and I'll look forward to seeing you over the drinks this evening.
There's a 4-letter word, as offensive as any. It holds back the few, puts a stop to the many. You can't climb that mountain, you can't cross the sea, you can't become anything you want to be. You can't hit a century, they can't find a cure. She can't think about leaving or searching for more. Because can't is a word with the habit of stopping the ebb and flow of ideas. It keeps dropping itself where we know in our hearts it's not needed, and saying don't go when we could have succeeded. But those 4 little letters that end with a T, they can change in an instant when shortened to 3. We can take off the T, we can do it today. We can move forward, not back. We can find our own way. We can build, we can run, we can follow the sun, we can push, we can pull. We can say, I'm someone who refuses to believe that life can't be better with the removal of one insignificant letter.